Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings, to the We Are Change Daily News Show, where we try to present you with the unpleasant truth instead of comforting lies, where medications are $400 when they're 4 cents a piece in different countries, and we like our media nice and consolidated by mega corporations that control the flow of information, that manipulate reality and use psychological warfare to bring humanity down to a low frequency vibration so we never see the light. Woo! And oh yeah, there's also aliens, which we're going to talk about later in this broadcast. But starting off today, the first story that I really wanted to talk about is the story that came all the way out of the United Kingdom, where a university student was facing 12 charges of rape and sexual assault. This 22-year-old university student had his life ruined because police officers who were investigating the case and prosecutors lied for over 2 years and hid 40,000 messages from his alleged victim. Text messages that were requesting sex that the police failed to disclose to the prosecution, that when were finally presented to the court after 2 years, all charges, the 20 years that this man was facing, were totally dropped because there was no chance of conviction. Now, of course, this man is suing the police department, and rightfully so. And this is a terrifying case and gives us an example of why we need more accountability with police officers and why we shouldn't always jump to conclusions. Now, there are actual rapists and sexual predators out there. They're usually in the upper echelons of our society. And the injustice also swings to the opposite direction when we're talking about these cases. Like, for an example, how Harvey Weinstein hired Mossad agents to do his dirty work, and how local police departments, even though they had evidence of his sexual misconduct, like the NYPD had here in New York City, totally disregarded it and never followed up or prosecuted him. The same Harvey Weinstein that even Courtney Love was warning us about in 2005, along with other prominent Hollywood figures, and was blacklisted for, while Harvey Weinstein for over 40 years was able to continue his disgusting predatory attacks on people around him. And the overall conclusion here is there definitely needs to be an overhaul on police accountability and how police officers actually deal with these particular cases. And these are very serious cases with very powerful people that police officers are usually paid off by. Even Hollywood actor Terry Crews recently came out and said Hollywood may try to kill him, and police officers warned him that, quote, "these folks don't play fair," just shortly after he came about the sexual abuse that he faced himself. And he even said, "if I were to have a timely, quote, accident, you know where to look." Crews wrote on his Twitter account, as well as other tweets, that give us a look into the sick, deprived nature of Hollywood, its power, and its political connections that allow them to be above the law. And now, in related news, this next story gives us a great example why we should take every one of these situations from a case-by-case basis. As we're finding out that one of Donald Trump's accusers, who accused Donald Trump of groping her in the 1990s, has actually been soliciting then candidate Donald Trump to become his campaign makeup artist so she could pitch her a new line of men's cosmetics. Of course, confirmed through leaked emails, which of course murkies the water with her case against Donald Trump and vindicates him in the eyes of many. Now, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump or really any authority figure, but when it comes to my reporting, you have to report things honestly. And we do have to admit there's been a lot of fake news and gerrymandering when it comes to the Trump-Russia investigation. As The Intercept puts it today, the FBI routinely abuses its power, but the Trump investigation has been by the book. And while the liberals and all the people against Donald Trump are cheering on an agency that's known as the secret police of the United States, which does abuse its power, trample over basic human rights, targets minorities and dissenters, manufactures evidence and guilt, and has a long track record of corruption, while being overly aggressive and politically motivated, you have to understand that two wrongs do not make a right. And these liberals and anti-Trumpers really need to realize what hand they're playing into. And the hands haven't been dealt fairly. Let's just be honest here. As Robert Mueller, the head investigator of the Trump-Russia probe, has confiscated almost every single Trump transition email without even a subpoena, with FBI agents on the case with a clear bias against Donald Trump, All the while, Hillary Clinton and her 30,000 emails from an illegal server that were wiped out and totally deleted were just dismissed as, quote, careless. And now there's even a controversial case that may force data from the Cambridge Analytica to be publicly revealed. Now, I'm all for transparency and accountability, but when it's being used as a political tool, we have to start asking questions. And the mainstream media is definitely not doing that in any way, showing an asinine, clear political bias as social media megacorporations like Facebook and also Twitter, but now Facebook is even blocking many Donald Trump supporters for talking about immigration, border walls, statues, and other pro-Donald Trump talking points. They're just getting completely blocked, censored, or banned from mega social media platforms that many people see as public utilities. And even though I disagree with some of the ideas being exchanged, this should be an alarm for everybody. Because as soon as powerful individuals start deciding what you should think about, what you should even see, that will lead us down to a horrible pathway that is very hard to reverse. And that pathway is only going to become more controlling, more restricted, and more to the benefit of those very powerful individuals, since they're allowed to do it now. And that's bullcrap, because a free and open society starts with free speech. And while the megacorp censor free speech and the mainstream media talks about how Donald Trump had a drink of water, the real legitimate issues to actually criticize Donald Trump on are totally ignored, like his close relationship with Saudi Arabia and their engagement with the conflict in Yemen right now, which as of today has been going on for exactly 1,000 days. Violating countless numbers of human rights, killing tens of thousands, destroying almost 500,000 homes, schools, hospitals, and agriculture that is leading almost 7 million people on the brink of famine. All, of course, with US and UK support being complicit in war crimes, and officially blaming Iran instead of even acknowledging their role in Yemen, trying to start a war with that country. Of course, closely following the neoconservative doctrine and also entangling other countries and their alliances like Russia, which we just saw US fighter jets in Syria intercept and fire warning flares at in that country just moments ago. And the neoconservative wet dream of a war with Iran is still being pursued by Donald Trump. All the while, there's record military spending, and the US government will spend nearly $2 billion a day in 2018 for so-called defense, when in reality, it's war. And already, the United States spends more on defense, actually war, than the next 7 countries combined in the world. A staggering chart, and a very sad one, knowing how much of that money could actually go to help humanity instead of destroy it. But hey, there's aliens, at least. Well, according to the New York Times and DOD, as the Department of Defense recently just admitted to a UFO program releasing shocking video showing videos of UFOs, unidentified flying objects that defied the laws of physics, leaving, of course, many confused and shocked at what we're seeing and why this would be released right now, revealing how the Pentagon has spent $22 million. By the way, that's only like a drop in the bucket compared to the actual wars they started that are in the trillions. You can see where their priorities are. To study UFOs in a 2007 to 2012 program that has now been officially confirmed. Program that was launched on behest of U.S. Representative Harry Reid and carried out by private contractor Bigelow Aerospace, a company, of course, owned by Harry Reid's close friend and believer in extraterrestrial life, billionaire Robert Bigelow. And hell, how vast and large the universe is. It would be silly of us to think that we are alone, but for the government to officially release this, there has to be more questions asked. Now, the program still remains in existence, and usually many people would explain UFOs with high-tech military technology, but for the government to release this, especially on the heels of them recently losing $21 trillion that they can't account for, and an audit coming soon, this is just a bizarre series of events. And even one of the former Navy pilots who observed this UFO described it as a bizarre encounter with an aircraft that had no plumes, wings, or rotors that were somehow able to outrun his fighter jet, saying that, quote, it accelerated like nothing I've ever seen before. Now, of course, this is not the first time this happened. Earlier this year, the Chilean Navy admitted it couldn't explain this unidentified flying object. And we also have a statement from Bigelow that said earlier this year that he professed his certainty of an alien presence. Now, interestingly, Julian Assange of WikiLeaks described this story as the New York Times fake news apocalypse and admitted that a, quote, CIA parapsychological Scientology fraud like Harold E. Puthoff was involved in this particular case. And of course, this case is leaving many people stumped and confused. Many people are talking about Project Bluebeam. But I wanted to leave this to you guys, since I'm definitely not an expert in this field. Why is this happening now? And to me, the bigger question out of all of this is, why the hell is the government giving us videos of UFOs and not what happened at the Las Vegas shooting? Not one video, not one clear photo, not one major piece of evidence to contradict all the official stories that they have been changing themselves. So yeah, I'm still curious about that. But of course, I'm looking forward to your comments in the section below. All the sources to the articles that I talked about in this video will be in the Steemit post, which will be on my Twitter and on the comment section of this video. If you like what you saw, share it with your friends and family members, and don't forget to support us on patreon.com/wearechange. Because unlike all those conglomerate buttholes, we are totally free and independent because we depend on your donations to survive. I don't know. Maybe aliens do exist. Maybe they came down and saw what was happening in Yemen and they were like, F that ish. And they were, I don't know. The story has me bongled. Regardless of that fact, I love you guys. Thank you again so much for watching. Stay tuned for more.